Welcome back to the PetaPixel podcast. We're in Tokyo, and it's very crowded in here.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
It's still the morning, so it's Ohio gozaimasu.
Ohio gozaimasu. Yeah. So this room is really small, and
We're going to do all our disclaimers here for 5 minutes.
if we look uncomfortable, it's because we are.
Yes.
But hopefully we sound okay. We did a sound test and it sounded
Jordan loves coming to this country, but he physically does not fit here.
Nothing is designed.
Have you hit your head on anything yet?
I haven't yet.
These ceilings are actually relatively tall.
It's pretty nice. This is clearly a recent building, you know, because people have been getting taller, and like the proof of that is all Japanese architecture. They're like, this is 800 years old. And it's like, I know because I have a giant welt in my forehead right now. That's the giveaway.
Without fail, he's bonked his head. So it's going to happen some point.
The architecture here is designed to keep people like me out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this week, somewhat on topic of that, we're going to talk about travel. Again, we've done one travel show before when you guys were out by the beach. We're going to do another one, mainly how do you travel internationally and not hate yourself while also being a photographer. It's very, very easy to overpack. So we're going to give you some of their tips on how they handle that. Also, if you're wondering why we're in Japan, we're doing a few projects here, most of which we can't talk about. But one we will talk about is we're going to go see the Nikon Museum.
Very excited.
You should see that video by the end of this week, if fingers crossed, Jordan's...
If I do a good job.
That's right.
If he doesn't suffer a concussion at some point before that video shot.
Also, we are recording this a little bit earlier than usual. So if we've missed some major news, we'll get to it.
Don't hate us.
This week. Yeah, so apologies there. But all right, well, that's a good enough intro, I think. Let's get started.
And you may have noticed that we're outside right now and I'm wearing different clothing. You know, it's because I want to share with you guys a message from our sponsor on the podcast, OM System. Has nothing to do with the fact that we got this message after the time of recording. Not at all. We just wanted to stretch our legs and enjoy beautiful Tokyo. And OM System has a fantastic event coming up. It is their 3rd annual OM System Week. This is a global event which inspires photographers to just unleash their creativity. Now, this year's theme is creativity, it's in our nature. And this is all about encouraging you to explore the outdoors with OM System cameras. So these OM System Week events are really cool because whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out as a beginner, there's so much educational information here, not just about photography, but also about learning a lot of the great features on OM System cameras. Things that I really like to use in the outdoors like live ND, higher res shot, and focus stacking. And then there's more. OM System has an amazing photo contest all based on creativity. And the first prize is fantastic. I'll show you right now. You see, this photo contest is going to give you a chance to showcase your best outdoor photos. And if you win, you get to come here. You actually get an incredible trip to Japan with OM System Ambassador Michele Burns. And that's still not all, because for OM System Week, you can save up to $500 on select OM System cameras and lenses. Registered users will have access to even more exclusive benefits beyond that. So definitely get on top of this. Go visit explore.omsystem.com/PetaPixel. And again, big thanks to our sponsor, OM System, for sponsoring our podcast.
Okay, we're back. I know that we just did the ad read with Chris out in the streets, but in this time that we've been sitting here during recording, Jordan has been told he must have a question for us. He does not prepare
you
for
can't
it.
Apparently this like preempts the ad read. So guys, I gotta know. Is there one thing you need to eat before we leave this place? What is that? And what is our strategy for making sure that that absolutely happens?
I have not had okonomiyaki in Japan.
Because it's gross.
20 years. I think it's great, but I don't need to eat it. I think I should have fish. That's not going to be hard to do.
I think, like we'll hit up a fish market and get some fresh. See, the thing is, Chris doesn't like a whole bunch of Japanese food. This has been a point of contention for a long time.
That's not true. Oh my goodness. I love Japanese food. I love all sorts. I just don't like I don't like dango, and I don't like okonomiyaki
or takoyaki.
And takoyaki, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, it's fine. I'll eat. It's just I don't love it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We had
I love curry. Yeah, gyoza was great. Ramen I love.
Okay, well, what is the one thing we got to hit up for you then, Chris?
You know, when we come to Japan, is there food that I definitely have? Like I make katsu curry at home. We have good ramen at home. I don't know. I'd like to have like shabu shabu. So crack out the credit card because I want like real Japanese shabu shabu again.
Well, later on, we're going to have a story about one of my food requirements for this trip.
Yes.
But I have to say, the last time we were here for Panasonic in Osaka, I said, like, I would just like one good traditional, like, Japanese bento meal. And we totally screwed it on it. Didn't happen. I bumped my mic.
Careful,
I was so aggravated.
Don't bang the walls. You're so angry right now. Oh, my God.
Boorish
North
American.
Somebody get this guy some traditional onsen food before he loses his mind.
But we are going to loop back, actually. That serves as a great way to circle us back to the end of the show. So we will touch on food again at the very end.
It's going to have a beautiful structure, this episode.
But what we're going to do instead is talk about the stuff that happened. And this week, we published your guys' hands-on with the 500 and the
16 to 55 version 2.
And there is something that you must talk about that I'm sure folks are discussing in the comments. I don't know. We haven't published it yet. I'm sure it'll be there. There's a shot of you, Jordan, where you have put a filter on that 500 millimeter lens in...
Like a genius. Can we all agree? Genius?
Can you explain why that works?
Okay, so you can actually see a sliver of it in our XM5 video, but no one actually caught it there. But it's definitely much more dramatically illustrated in our Fuji lens thing. So basically, we've got, guys, a medium format 500 millimeter lens optical formula.
95 mil filter thread.
We got a big ass hood on this thing, right? So theoretically, I would only need to cover a small area of the space coming out of the front of that hood in order to get full coverage with my ND filters, right? Because I don't have 95 millimeter ND filters. I'm not made of money.
And so this is legitimately one of the issues with having these giant filter threads. I mean, it's great that the lens has it, although the majority of people will probably just put it like a UV filter on if they're worried about damage.
I mean, telephoto, you might be using a pole sometimes too, but not a lot of like, I'm not going to buy a set of 95 millimeter
and God,
ND
who wants to buy a
filters.
95 millimeter circ pole? I mean, oh my God, it's hundreds of dollars. Like, so that's the thing. Legitimately, it's very expensive to have those big filters. So yeah, Jordan just taped something.
So I took some gaff tape and I tried to eyeball to hang it like right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say Chris was skeptical while we were out there. I wouldn't say you were being supportive necessarily.
No, it wasn't being supportive. First off, you only secured it on 2 ends, right? Yes. I mean, it would have been even more stable if you did 4.
It was hanging.
But I will give Jordan credit. Normally, his modus operandi is to build stuff with Rycote stickies, which is like a way to hold microphones on. That's his go-to double tape circles.
I couldn't quite build like a web of little circles of Rycote stickies for this.
If he had Rycote, he would have built
tape, the classic. Yeah.
Anyways,
and
it worked.
And it worked great. Like I was really worried because it's a little bit further away from the front lens element. I might get reflection and things like that. But since it was attached to the hood, the light was blocked. It worked perfectly. And I will now accept congratulations from both of you. I'm sorry, I did it again.
Keeps hitting his table.
Yeah, if you keep hearing it. It's because his arms are longer than the space of this room allows.
He doesn't fit in the room. I mean, even if there was just one,
I can't Kermit in here.
Even if the two of us were out of here, it'd still be a problem.
All right. Well, thank you for explaining that because when I watched that, I was like,
you were flabbergasted.
That doesn't look right. Okay. Well, then let's talk about something else. The Air 3S is a new drone that was announced by DJI.
Yes.
So first, let's talk about that. It is a dual camera drone that uses a Type 1 sensor and can shoot 10-bit video.
Nice.
I think 10 bits of first. Type 1 is not.
They've always scaled it back. So it's like the log footage is basically, if it even offers it, it's unusable on those.
And this is nice because, I mean, the Air 3, I mean, it's still a pricey drone, but we're not talking about like a $4,000 drone, right? Like this is an affordable drone, but very capable video quality.
Looks like $1,300 for this one, which is definitely less than some of their super high-end drones.
Yeah.
The pictures that they provided, I'll put a link in the description below, taken with this drone, look great. There's a still frame that is graded log footage. Also looks great. Then again, it's a still frame. I'm sure there's videos you can find on DJI's YouTube, so if you're curious, you can go take a look. But I'm not going to complain about 10-bit, especially in a system where I think video is the primary focus.
I think
nice compact drone.
I think like bit depth is way more important than sensor size in a lot of ways. Is just the ability to, really grade that. It's all about those fine gradations, and it's not about generally shooting like super low light stuff.
Well, that is what they're saying this is great for now, though.
It's going to be better than, like the minis for sure. But yeah, if you need to go super low light, there you'll really see that advantage. But if I just want to go out and get some establishing shots, like a Type 1 sensor is great, 10-bit, I'm going to have some flexibility. So it's like a professional base level, to kind of what the Phantom series used to be.
So here's a question, though. Do you guys think that, I mean, this size of drone used to be by far the most popular, right? Because that's kind of what we had. It was compact enough, throw it in a bag, go do your work. But you had to follow limitations and stuff like that. Are you okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do that once in a while.
You had to follow limitations on size and where you could use it and whatnot. Now that we have these capable drones that are really small, under the 250 gram weight range, you can take them pretty much anywhere, use them anywhere. Do you feel like this series of drone has kind of fallen by the wayside a bit?
They are certainly more difficult to use legally. So,
right? Because then you're like, why don't I just get
this is like, this is a professional drone, right? So and that 10-bit falls right into it. Where those smaller, like we were just looking at the camera store TV, like Dave and Evelyn are using that new like super tiny.
The one that follows you.
Yeah, I forget the name of it. Yeah. But again,
Nano?
That sounds right.
It's like the new one. The really
new brand new one.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of the features on that are really cool. But yeah, it's contrasty 4K coming right off of it. There's not a lot of flexibility there. So I think that's just going to be the dividing line right now.
And the other thing is, when you mentioned like why not just get an Inspire? We'll talk about basically touching on the main story segment today. Is like you can't travel with that thing easily. Right. This you could at least travel with,
and it's 16 grand.
Yes, there's that too. So like the DJI is definitely in their marketing pushing this more as a travel video camera sort of thing. So I can see that. So what you're saying is, yeah, it's going to be more professional than the Nano for sure. But it's definitely still more complicated to use in a lot of places than the ones that don't require like certain licensing.
Now this camera came out, it was announced, this drone, but it's not what people are expecting to hear.
No, and I do want, thank you for that segue. This is one of two segues off of this topic.
I'm the segue master. I'm gonna adopt traditional Japanese seiza because it's culturally appropriate. And
someone should do a montage of all the different seating positions that Chris and I use to try and get through this podcast.
Well, while you guys are adjusting yourselves, so
rephrase that immediately.
Okay.
They can see under the table.
A month or 2 months ago, maybe even been that long, one of the rumor sites published this insane rumor, and I'm going to go ahead and go on the record and say this is an insane rumor, that DJI and Hasselblad were working on a standalone mirrorless camera interchangeable lens system. And now, no matter what DJI does, I see on social, like if they tease anything, is this finally the camera? Guys, this is a stupid rumor. This camera will never exist. I don't know why anyone thinks...
I want it to.
Okay, but why is this even a good idea? Hasselblad exists and already is owned by DJI. Why would they need to do a collabs camera thing?
No,
it makes no sense.
There's no point in doing that.
There's none.
I want a flying Hasselblad.
It's not even that.
That exists.
Right.
It does.
It does
exist. It does. Yeah, and that did not pan out well.
So I'm sure I'm going to catch flack for this. I'm sure someone's going to be like, of course it makes sense. Well, no, it doesn't. I'm sorry. And it's not coming. This camera doesn't exist. And what I find super frustrating is that somebody decided to come up with this clearly insane, outlandish rumor, and it actually has this effect where DJI constantly has to deal with this.
What about this, though? Would it be insane if DJI came out with just a DJI-branded mirrorless camera? And they might say, lenses by Hasselblad or something.
Yes,
like
I do actually think that's insane. Because
I think that might actually...
Hasselblad is a better, stronger brand in a standalone interchangeable lens camera system. They would not choose to put DJI on it when they have Hasselblad.
But who owns who?
DJI owns Hasselblad.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So exactly.
They'll just use Hasselblad.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe like a DJI full frame mirrorless camera.
So this
doesn't have to be medium format.
This is my bold prediction.
Anyways, it was me who put that on the rumor site. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I said we need something between a Pocket and a Ronin 4D, and I think this makes a ton of sense. Like an integrated gimbal, maybe a Super 35 camera, something like that. That I do think makes a lot of sense. But what we're seeing is a lot of people saying no, this is like a hybrid, like classic mirrorless camera design, and that's what doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make sense, and it's not going to happen. It's not happening. Looking you dead in the eyes. It's not happening. The other thing that's
over his cold dead body, folks.
Just like, don't get your hopes up. Seriously, it's not happening.
Yeah.
The other thing that's worth pointing out too is one of the things at the very bottom of this announcement for the Air 3S that was super strange was its availability. And I'll read what I have here. The DJI Air 3S is available to order from store.dji.com with shipping starting today, while availability through dealers and retailers will be announced at a later date. That came out and reads like DJI is not giving this to retailers. They want to sell direct. Well, we didn't ask them about this. They already kind of realized that that's how it was going to sound.
Right.
They put out a note that says it's actually not something they wanted to do. This is a quote. A customs-related misunderstanding is currently affecting DJI's ability to import select drones into the United States. This appears to be part of a broader initiative by the Department of Homeland Security to scrutinize the origins of products, particularly in the case of Chinese-made drones, which is basically just DJI. Right. There are others, but it's basically targeting DJI, who is already being scrutinized for their drones. This, I don't know, to me clears things up. It essentially says they're trying and can't, and sorry. But they weren't willing to move their whole production and release schedule globally to accommodate this.
Right, they're ready. Get them out.
Yeah, just thought
I want to check and see what availability might be in Canada. I mean, I'm sure shipments would generally come into the same place for U.S. and Canada. But I'm not sure at this point. But that is a really interesting hiccup. We're starting to see real effects of this legislation.
Yeah,
my legs are falling asleep.
A DJI spokesperson told PetaPixel that a customs-related issue had primarily previously impacted their ability to bring in enterprise and agriculture drones, but is now impacting their ability to sell the new Air 3S drone to consumers through the typical retail partnership channels. This company is I mean, we
talked about some of these issues quite a few podcasts ago as well. But yeah, absolutely.
It's a pain for them. And I mean, I kind of feel bad for them. But, I understand why there's the issues that there are.
Insta360.
Yeah, Jordan. They announced a new camera this week, and by that I mean they will have announced it by the time we publish this podcast.
Yes, and we'll have a video comparing it to some other ones as well. But Chris has also used this.
Yes,
he was able to take it out fishing.
Ace Pro 2, right?
Ace Pro 2.
Yeah.
So basically, what we're seeing here is everybody's looking at a slightly different design to address the limitations of an action camera, which is you basically interact with them on a touch screen on the back. But if you prop them anywhere or tuck them up against something or use a pump cup, you don't have access to your controls anymore. So the solution that Insta360 came up with is like a flip up screen, really similar to what we saw in like old Sony A5000 series bodies, things like that. It's a selfie screen. So then you're using the big touch screen. You get the same kind of resolution and everything on it. I think it's kind of a smart option. Yeah. And then the other stuff is so incredibly similar to what we're seeing from the DJI right now. We've got the same type 1/1.3 sensor where GoPro's using a much smaller 1/1.9 on it. They're both sharing that. Even the mounting clips are interchangeable actually between the DJI and the Insta360. So there's a lot of crossover happening there. What is, I think, going to be the headline feature is the only one that can record 8K is the Insta360 at this point. Yeah. So
is it good 8K?
It's quite detailed. Like it is more detailed than shooting 4K, which is nice. Yeah. But you lose the ability to capture log footage with it. And it's certainly not comparable to like, the 8K we'd get out of like a Z8 or an R5 II or something like that. But you will get a little bit of a detail bump if you're willing to sacrifice dynamic range.
Nice little camera.
That's basically the trade-off.
I would say, one of the things I was thinking about with an action cam like this with the flip screen is that's a failure point. And again, I don't think articulating LCD panels are that big a failure point.
Articulation.
Yeah. And actually the Insta360, the articulation is quite strong. It really does feel very solid, very strong. So I don't think that's really going to be an issue. Certainly because the screen's flipped up, if you were to catch it on something, I guess it could get torn off. But, it felt actually really rugged. Also probably the best stereo microphones built in to the cameras.
3?
Yeah. And
comes with a little kind of like a wind cover as well on it. So they're really trying to make that built-in audio actually usable.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense not only as an action cam, but I could see people wanting to vlog with it. Because you do get that flip-up screen. It's a way larger display where you can see yourself. Good detail in the video, larger sensor, better audio recording. So, I think that makes sense.
I'm curious I haven't seen the video yet.
Working on it.
Yeah, it's coming out.
As soon as we're done the pod, back at it, gang.
So I'm curious to actually see the comparison. So that's neat. All right. So next thing is there were a bunch of stuff that was dropped from Adobe Max last week. This week, us recording. Last week, us publishing. One thing we didn't talk about during the last podcast was that Lightroom got an update. Jordan, you are the most versed on this because you just read the article. So tell us.
I did read Jeremy Gray's article, despite being the only of the three of us that doesn't use Lightroom. So let's see how quickly I can regurgitate it. I mean, basically, the issue that we've always seen with Classic is performance-wise, it's lagging behind just what is now Adobe Lightroom, like their desktop version, essentially. So they've done a lot of work to kind of speed that up. And now the AI features are out of beta. It's actually part of the full program there. So you can do things like the generative remove with the eraser tool. Yep. And the big one for me, because I have to do a monologue about this every single episode, is the HDR functionality is now out of beta. So you will be able to actually display, edit.
He's very excited about it. I mean, sure.
And deliver proper HDR images that then browsers will have no way of understanding and displaying correctly. But, airdrop them to your phone and they're going to look great. Yeah. So
I read the article too.
It's a step closer.
So, you are now getting generative remove actually on all Adobe platform, like all Lightroom platforms. So the mobile stuff, all that kind of stuff coming across was pretty cool. We did play a little bit when we went and saw Adobe with their quick edits. So this is where the AI will scan the frame and then say, oh, I could do something to the sky. I could do something to the foreground. I could do something to this person. So that's supposed to be a little bit faster to do it. HDR support sounds great. I think that'll be nice. But also performance gains. And that's something that one of the biggest complaints that people have said is poor optimization when it comes to using Lightroom on different platforms. Now, we can't speak to that yet.
Module.
We haven't had a chance to try that, but it's nice that that's actually being recognized. So we'll have to see if that's actually faster.
Yeah, Adobe says its most significant focus for the Classic this year has been improving performance in the develop module, and it says it doubled image navigation performance, and the latest release further enhances how the software handles memory and caching, which should deliver a smoother experience. Nikon photographers in particular will find that tethered capture is now faster and, quote, more reliable. I don't know what that means. Was it like losing connection? That sounds bad, but apparently this has been fixed on Mac and Windows. So there's that. Worth pointing out for folks who use Lightroom because a lot of you do. Are you all right over there?
Yeah, it just hurts. You're not young.
It's not comfortable.
I used to sit on hardwood floors for hours in Seiza, and it's...
Now you're on tatami and can't even do it.
Well, but now I'm like at risk of, I don't know, getting blood clots or something. I don't know.
An excellent segue is between the two legs of yours that have blood clots in them now, is that Sony has a new dual battery charger.
Wow.
You like that?
You both get Segway Master t-shirts now.
Gosh.
So Sony announced a new BC-ZD1. They always have the best product names.
Yep.
Dual battery charger for the widely used NP FZ100 batteries.
The Z battery, and a new DC-C1 DC coupler that provides power to USB-C compatible cameras that use that battery, or the NP FW50. These are all terrible names. Yeah.
At any rate, Jordan, you were actually legitimately excited by this.
Well, no, I just think it's so long coming because you look at, when the A1 first shipped a long time ago, it was like, look, this is a professional high-end camera, and you used to open like a Nikon D5 or a Canon 1DX.
You get your battery charger.
Beefy double giant battery charger, and then with the Sony, you get like this rinky-dink little thing they just plug in with AC, and it takes forever to charge the camera. So we would actually charge them internally through the USB-C, was actually faster. So now we've got hopefully a faster double charge. Like it's just, 6 years after I would have anticipated them. Since
but do you know how hard it is?
With the A9, they're trying to carve into the pro market, and they're still using that garbage
do you know how
charger.
hard it is from a logistical and an engineering standpoint to take two battery chargers and mold them together into the same housing?
You've been able to get a third-party one to do this from like the day the Z battery was first announced. They've been available from all kinds of different third-party manufacturers. But yes, I'm glad
it's
Sony is doing
twice as hard.
Are you being facetious?
Yes, I'm being facetious.
If you get an A7R5, I hope we get a double charger. Like if your camera is more than $3,000, I want a double charger.
Oh, you're not going to get a double charger. No.
But I am demanding.
But you'll be able to pay $250.
Is that how much it is?
I don't know, but I'm assuming
it's... is that your guess, 250?
My guess
Did you see
is...
price?
I'm going to go 165.
I don't know if we have a price.
I don't know that I do have a price.
Oh,
$129.99.
Damn, take it back. I take it back.
It's cheap. It's not
Maybe
cheap.
that's per battery charger.
Yeah.
Double that. Right?
No, that's for that DC coupler that Jaron was also talking about.
Oh, boy. Well, hey, you know.
Okay. All right.
Hooray, Sony, listening again to its
Hey, it'd be
consumers.
really nice to have a double charger if you were going to go traveling, say, internationally.
Yeah, so that's actually a good, excellent segue to our main story topic,
killing the
which is
segues.
going to be how to travel as a photographer and not hate yourself. But before we get into that, we have a main story sponsor, and it's Tamron. Experience unmatched versatility of Tamron's all-in-one zoom lenses, including the new 28 to 300mm f4 to 7.1 Di3 VC VXD lens for Sony E-mount.
played-
Wow,
with
that's
that.
like wide angle to full telephoto, Chris.
Get a lot done.
He's not Chris.
Well, he's talking to you.
I'm talking past.
Yeah. This all-in-one zoom covers a wide focal range from expansive landscapes at 28, as you were just saying, Jordan, to distant subjects at 300.
I'd call that a full telephoto.
With its fast and quiet VXD autofocus system, you'll capture sharp photos effortlessly.
You can do it.
The built-in VC, which stands for vibration compensation, minimizes camera shake for smooth handheld shooting, even in varying light conditions. Compact and lightweight, this lens is ideal for travel and outdoor adventures, empowering you as a photographer to capture stunning scenery with flexibility and ease. Shop Tamron lenses at tamron-americas.com. You can check that in the link in the description below. Do you guys have anything about this lens that you would like to point out? Because there are about 10 bullets here that I could point to, but I want you to just point to like one thing about this lens that's worth
It's sharp.
attention.
I remember back in the day when it was like, you want a super zoom? That thing is going to be soft.
So that's here point number 5, exceptional image quality, advanced optical
Let's see if
design.
we can hit them all.
I mean, it's good. Very versatile because it's got excellent close-up capability. I was impressed by that.
Close focusing capability, that is the next point.
Zippy fast focus motor. I believe that's a linear motor.
That's on here too.
Yes,
VXD Voice Coil
VXD
Extreme
Voice-
Torque Drive.
Voice
That's on
Coil
here.
Extreme,
That's
yes.
right.
Weather sealed. The
Correct.
very good build quality.
Yeah.
on
Wow,
this
you guys
thing.
are
As I
knocking
recall,
it out
it was
of the park.
pretty lightweight, 21.5 ounces, which is about 500 grams.
Correct. That's also on here.
Okay, perfect.
I think the only one you haven't mentioned.
Works for Sony E-mount.
Wow, you guys killed it. That's almost all of them. The only one that you didn't mention is that it's the ideal travel companion, which sort of goes along with
That's-
No,
this.
that's Chris Nichols.
That's philosophical. That's a philosophical argument.
Yeah,
That's
man.
not a technical argument.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Tamron, for sponsoring this main story. Again, you can check out all of Tamron's lenses at
What are you doing over
tamron-americas.com.
My left leg has actually gone completely asleep.
Don't bump
It's
the table.
tingling
Don't
so
bump
much.
The table.
Okay, well, do you need a minute?
No, I'm good. Keep
Jeez.
going.
It's
Okay.
like Gogeta, like smashing through someone's tatami room.
So, speaking of... my God. Speaking of travel and lenses, let's talk about how you guys would recommend traveling as a photographer and not hating yourself. And I think a
Or
good
as
place...
a videographer. If you travel as a videographer, you hate yourself. Jordan will talk about
There's
this.
really
There's
way
no getting around it.
But I kind of wanted to ask you guys to look back at the first time you traveled internationally, which is very easy for you to do because in Canada, everywhere is outside of Canada.
Actually, that's the same in most countries. If you
Well,
leave those
in the
countries.
United States, we can go many places.
Yeah, but Jared's right, because nothing happens in Canada.
Correct.
No events happen in Canada. No fun stuff happens. And we always go to the States for
You
that.
know what happens in Canada is snow and cold.
Yeah, what happens in Canada doesn't stay in Canada.
It leaves for America.
Yeah, to go to nicer, warmer places like California.
So when you did your first travel internationally, each of you, do you remember packing too much? Was that a problem?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We got to start traveling with TCS TV. That was
Yeah.
very exciting.
That was the
Fresh
first time I
trips.
traveled professionally, like with the expectation I was going to shoot gear.
Exactly.
A 3-day trip was our first one. It was for the Sony A7S II launch. I remember that very specifically because they lost my luggage.
Yeah. The first time out.
Nowadays, if you're
course.
like a
Direct flight.
3-day direct flight trip, and I'm checking a bag, I don't know, but I was just like, oh man, I'm going to need tripods. I've got to have backup audio and everything like
Yep.
that, and all my clothes. But then we were staying in the meatpacking district, and it was going to be another 24
Very
hours
nice
before
hotel.
I got my bag back.
Is it the W? Maybe it was the W. I don't know. It was a nice
Something,
hotel.
but I just remember I'm like, I need underwear and socks, but I'm in like the most expensive part of New York's like shopping district. So I wound up getting like $60-$80 underwear just to make it through the night. And then
because the only store was the actual one in the hotel, right? The boutiques in the hotel
because everything else is
are
like,
already
yeah,
overpriced.
would you like $1,000 suit right now, sir? That was
Yeah.
the only option. So it's like, all right, I'll take. So then I had to like reimburse with the airline. Like, I'm sorry, I have $50 socks.
Did they give you your money?
Oh, they did.
They did. Yeah,
They must have hated. They're like, look at this guy, right? I mean,
I wore the same shirt and
$80
pants
underwear
for 2 days, but I did.
To this day, Jordan is traumatized by checking a bag. Like,
I won't do it. No,
he absolutely will not. Like, unless he absolutely has to.
You did that for this trip.
He
right?
did because he absolutely had to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is the thing. I completely overpacked for this trip. Like I had so much camera equipment in it. I was shooting all primes, I remember very specifically. So we had a whole bag of like Zeiss. What was the manual focus series of Zeiss lenses?
No, the Milvis was for Fujifilm only, I thought. Anyways,
Batis.
Batis. Yeah, it was Batis.
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, I had a whole bag of primes with that, all kinds of stuff. And just over the years, I've just learned, what is my essential kit that I can get the job done with that. What I have started packing a lot more is storage, batteries, things like that. It's a lot less like camera gear, a lot less supports, things like that. It's a whole lot more of just like if I'm traveling, I'm using Panasonic, so I have redundant backup. So I'm always shooting everything to 2 memory cards simultaneously, which is something I would like to see all camera manufacturers embrace. We're using, giant small rig battery that's powering the camera right now, which, yes, I did do a sponsored ad on it, but damn it, I love that thing.
You do love that battery.
They shouldn't have paid us to do it.
What's funny is jokes on small.
They would have just gotten like an A+ review from me for free.
I will say, so having external batteries is essential. One of the changes was definitely having to get PD rated ones. We're kind of getting past the stage now with travel where cameras all require PD rated or only you can work with PD rated. But for a while there, that was kind of the case. So really making sure you had...
even charge through USB-C.
They would charge.
It was like I remember bringing all of my Canon
USB-A, C.
No, not even USB. Like, a separate external plug it in. Like, remember...
Oh, yeah, terrible.
For BP511.
But even with cables, I mean, it used to be, especially for your case, when you guys were... Because I wasn't using Apple back then, you had to bring Thunderbolt cables and you had to bring mini A's and Lightning and C's, like everything, right?
It is nice. Everything is streamlined.
You mentioned that, like the USB-C being a thing now. As you can see, all of this is USB-C. Has been fantastic.
It's finally universal.
Like season 1 of this podcast, we did like our favorite gear. He's gonna make it.
Just keep talking, Jaron.
We did like some of our favorite gear, and I brought out this Peak Design tech bag that I have, and I always have that and the bath bag fully packed. I have
all ready to go.
Yeah, so I never have to be worried that I'm going to forget something. I'm fully redundant on being able to cleanse myself and charge my things. But that bag, the tech bag, was getting really packed because I had so many cables I had to manage. It has since shrunk way back down to being mostly, I think I have 5 or 6 USB-C cables and then a couple Thunderbolt cables, and that's all I need now. So that bag has gotten a lot smaller, and which is good because it goes in my backpack and I have to carry that thing around.
But highly recommend like compact SSDs, like the Crucials and stuff that we use. They're really nice and compact, very thin. You can throw them in your camera bag.
Samsung's have been really nice.
LaCie, and then OWC make our favorite compact SSDs.
Nice and small, rugged, easy to travel with. Especially
got a new one. I have to test it.
Especially for our line of work, we do usually have to bring a plethora of memory card types and fast ones, right? Because you don't know what camera, we often don't know the product we're going to be looking at, or if we do, we don't know the particulars of what
that's special
memory
to our
card
case.
is going to use. So that's special to our case. But obviously bringing memory cards, extra redundant memory cards is very important. We have had them fail on travel.
Really?
Yeah, rarely, but sure.
What failed? Do you remember when?
I don't remember.
Was it just an SD card?
Yeah, like having an SD card fail or even just peripheral devices like card readers and things like that fail, right?
Yeah.
So that can be annoying.
That's very specifically why I do redundant video recording. I was using a Sony card that did fail.
A tough card?
No, pre-tough.
Pre-tough. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never started with a tough card.
And then the other failure we've had is several on action cameras, which is a real shame because there is no redundancy on those.
And again, like a micro USB?
Yeah, a micro USB into a GoPro. Yeah, and files of corrupt. And most of the time I can save the majority of that file in recovery.
But it's annoying.
But it's a huge pain. So that's why I lean so hard on those. Yeah.
I would say too, so again, this is not an Apple thing, but having the iPad Pro actually has been really good insofar as how compact it is. Because this I can store in my actual Wotancraft Pilot camera bag that I bring. So that means, it used to be the Gigabyte Aero or, the MSI Way.
The jet engine. You frequent listeners would know it as better.
And that means huge power supplies that don't even work on airplanes because they draw too much wattage. So the airplane won't, the plane will crash if you plug
the flight attendant runs through the aisles panicking.
Yeah, whereas I can work on this, I can charge this, it's fantastic on the flight. So just getting the right gear like that, I don't like working on the iPad Pro as far as the OS, honestly, but you get used to it and it's worth the trouble for the convenience of being able to have something compact like this. Good battery life and quiet.
It's the same reason I use a 14-inch MacBook Pro. I'd love to have the real estate of the 16. Jaron, look how comfortable he is over there. But if somebody reclines their seat, God help you, with a 16.
So that did happen to me on the flight.
I know, right? And then it wedges in, and you're like, are they going to shatter the screen?
What's the worst part about it is actually where the edge of the computer rests on my arm as I'm typing.
Yeah.
It's in the worst, most uncomfortable position if I don't have enough room.
Yeah, even after with the 14, after I do a long flight, my wrist is, because I have to do the Dracula kind of above typing. So the smaller I can get the laptop.
What do you mean the Dracula?
That's how I type.
No, but it's you have to have the accent.
I stopped making that sound on flights. It was making people around me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's very disconcerting.
So I guess more specific to photographers, they're going to be thinking about cameras and lenses. So what do you recommend for that sort of situation? Because I think a lot of them are worried they're not going to have the lens that they want.
Everybody should get the Tamron 28 to 300.
You don't have to say
I'm sorry. Okay, no. It's
you can use that lens.
that would be a nice travel lens.
But do you recommend? Actually, that is a weird way to have a legitimate conversation about all-in-ones.
I highly recommend the Tamron 28 to 300.
He got 3 hours of sleep last night.
Yeah, I'm very tired.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that as well.
Oh my God.
I just always sacrifice light gathering when I travel. I'm happy with an f4,
Really?
a 24 to
You
120.
love f4?
Get the range and sacrifice a bit of aperture. It's the same thing with primes. I generally, it's if I can get some f2s, f1.8s, just cut down on the way to that.
There was one thing you did that I was very impressed by the last time we went on a long, arduous trip. And
Did he sleep?
That was in Idaho.
That would be the most impressive accomplishment.
Did you sleep in Idaho?
Yeah.
I think
same time zone.
Okay, so the reason I bring this up is you were shooting entirely, really, with one camera and one lens for most of that stuff.
Okay,
and that was really good.
The Nikkor 24 to 120 f4 is a great lens.
Yeah.
It is very versatile. I do tend towards minimalism, but that's really tough though. It depends. You never know what you're going to see. You have to judge. Am I going to see wildlife? Am I going to shoot sports or action? I mean, obviously that changes things.
If you're traveling, you're probably thinking to yourself, I'm going to shoot travel.
Everything.
I used to do the whole cover all your bases somehow, right? And I've slowly let that go where I'm you know what? I'm okay with some limitations. It depends. For me, honestly, most of the time I don't get a choice because we're going to be reviewing whatever particular piece of gear. But in the rare situation where we know it's a camera body, and we have to bring lenses, they're not going to provide all the lenses, then I like primes for telephotos to keep things small. A slow prime for telephoto, I'll make it work if that's something we have to do. But most of the time it's street photography, wildlife is not really a factor that we shoot a lot, or they provide the glass. So I don't know. I try to keep things minimal. I try to keep things light, but I don't like primes. I like to travel with zooms.
Okay, so I was about to say, actually the most liberating time I had on a trip was our second last time here in Tokyo, where I just brought a 24 and an 85 prime. And then I can just say, there's something way off in the distance. I don't have the gear for that. It's very liberating to just say, look, that type of photography is not available to me.
The shot's not going to happen.
I'll focus on what I can do. And I actually really enjoyed that. It wound up weighing less than a quality standard zoom would. And, just having two options I find very freeing.
I have decided that I also like shooting one or two primes when possible. So in front of me, for those who are watching on YouTube, I have the Voigtlander Bessa and I have a 35 on it.
Yeah, which is a piece of garbage.
He hates 35, not the camera. You love
the lens is great and the camera's great. Anyway.
Okay, you guys have a conversation amongst yourselves.
And the other one is that I have...
Don't put your head through the shoji. He almost did. He almost did.
I need to walk.
Okay.
All right, keep going.
Okay, well Jordan
just
takes a walk. His leg is definitely asleep. I tend to shoot with like a 35 or a 24, and then I'll take a zoom, not a zoom, a telephoto lens. So upstairs from here, I have my Nikon F is here as well, and I brought the 24, and I also brought the 105.
Yeah, you brought more cameras than I did on this trip.
And then I also have a ZF as well, just because I plan to shoot some digital, but the fact is that these film cameras lenses they don't weigh very much, so I'm able to bring more of those. I probably would have kept it down to one camera or one film camera, one digital camera if possible, but
I hate taking multiple cameras on these trips.
I think I would agree with that. It's more than I want to do. I'm going to be using the Voigtlander more than anything else.
And I know this isn't a consideration for most users, but having to take, like, because this is our experiences, right? So for our experiences, often we have to take multiple brands of cameras, which is annoying. And Jordan can attest to this. Did you just chop it off, or you're okay?
It's back working. I touched the bottom of my foot and I can feel it where that wasn't the case a minute ago. So
Jordan can attest to this, where often he's going to be shooting video with the Panasonic rig. Like that's classically what we've used. But we're going to be bringing other camera gear as well, right? Different brands. So multiple brands suck, obviously, because you have lens interchangeability and stuff like that. But I don't know. What else is really important, essential?
I think the thing to point out is that the thing you both touched on a little bit is if you're trying to do everything, you have to bring a lens that has compromises. So you can either do that, or no, you're not going to get everything and be at peace with that.
Yeah, man, zooms. Modern zooms don't have that many compromises.
Especially when ISO performances as well.
Yeah, crank ISO. I don't really worry about it. So I've migrated more and more to zooms. If I take primes, it's because I'd creatively want to use them. But yeah, I'm a zoomy zoomer.
Well, let's talk about the biggest space hit, which is support.
Tripods. Hate them. We try not to bring them. Yeah, if at all possible. But sometimes we do.
They had to bring this one.
Yeah.
I am also basically making them do which tripod is best for
travel.
And
we hate him for it.
They have so many of these travel tripods now in
my basement is all travel tripods, but I mean this is great real world experience.
Sure, because some people will want to use them, especially if they're going out shooting landscapes or long exposures. You have to have.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like when we were in Portland recently, our trip we're shooting waterfalls, so you're dragging that stuff around.
Yep.
I have found a few nice compromises. I've stopped bringing tripods on trips. I use little tabletop ones, like this little iFootage foot is really wonderful, but I do sometimes travel with monopods if possible.
But you can get away with monopods.
I used to 100%. 100%.
You're not bringing them as much as I used to.
No, I still use, I would say I shoot almost all our show in Calgary on a monopod, but the IBIS has gotten so good on the majority of camera bodies that I can get away with hand holding.
Technology is making it easier nowadays to keep things small.
This trip in particular, I did something I would never do, which is I did bring a gimbal because we're going to the Nikon Museum, and I really want like a travel log kind of dynamic kind of look to it. So that's one of those cases where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to have my slippers on this trip. And that sucks. When I get into my condo
to Japan,
I like to have
you didn't
slippies.
Bring slippers to Japan.
But I said, if I want that camera movement, Slippy's got to stay home. So, you are making
tough
compromises.
Choices that we have to make. Yeah. Jordan had to give up his slippers. That's a big deal. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add to this?
Let's talk about sleep very quickly, because people need this context for the rest of this. I can't believe we got this far into the episode. Chris can't handle time changes. His body is
or sleeping in other beds for the first time. I don't know. It's weird.
That is actually a known issue.
Yeah,
you don't sleep well in
Plus,
a bed.
Let's keep in mind too, like when we go on these trips, it's work. Right, and it's stressful work because you have an agenda that has to get done,
and you have to be on,
and stuff, and so there's anxiety. There's lots of anxiety that goes along with these trips too, right? So yeah, no sleep for me. And Jordan sleeps like a baby.
I do.
Did you sleep well last night?
I slept great. I had a wonderful, I woke up every hour and then I was like, oh, I'm in my bed, which is a wonderful place to be. And I went back to sleep. And I did that multiple times through the day and I feel fantastic.
Yeah, you sleep like a murder victim. Yeah. It's so strange.
I mean, I think that's our dynamic has to work.
I sleep like a baby. If we were where I get up at like 1:30 in the afternoon, like in the morning,
comes
crying.
In and he's like, Chris, hold me until I fall back asleep.
And then I poop my pants and then I can't sleep until 3:30. And nobody can have sex around me, and they're all mad and resentful.
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, I'm good. That's what babies do.
Oh my God.
Anyways, but Jordan has a gift. He can sleep on trains, planes, automobiles, on strangers.
So the last time I remember him falling asleep in an environment that baffled me was in Arizona during the R1 and R5.2 like shooting thing that we did. On the way back from the shooting thing that we did. It was like an hour in Arizona.
Yes. Oh yeah, in the bus. Yeah.
And the way you sleep is very similar to the posture you have right now, where you're curved.
Clunk.
Yeah, your chin touches your chest, and you just.
And then my hands slowly rise into Dracula.
Like Dracula, and he starts.
No, they don't. No, I hug my belly, and
Yeah, he just.
No, but I've seen Jordan do this for hours. This like chin down for hours.
Yeah, it's a superpower.
He can sleep in any.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Well.
Any environment. Unbelievable.
This is completely not useful for our listeners, but we needed to get this off our chest.
Yeah, okay.
So it would be a little redundant.
I was up at 4 this morning. We had a lovely. You were awake though too.
Yeah, I was 5.
Was it 5? Okay, I was up at 3, and then I tried to sleep.
4:45.
Yeah.
Well, I heard Chris rustling around this morning, and I was kind of already up. I made a mistake. Usually, I don't. If I'm traveling.
This is
this
key,
direction, I will not sleep until it's time to sleep there. So when I got here. I was obviously very tired because I started out Wednesday morning at 5:45 a.m. is when I woke up. And then I got to this building on Thursday afternoon at 4. So that's just a long time. And I napped for like an hour and a half on the plane. That's fine.
I can't sleep on planes.
I'm very good at it. Once I got here, I was like, typically I try and keep myself occupied so that I don't fall asleep until maybe 8 or 9. That's fine. I was not keeping myself occupied. I was alone in here while I waited for these guys because they came from Narita and I came from Haneda, so they were much farther away. And I fell asleep. And I burned 2 hours doing that, and that affected my sleep last night. And I was up too early.
You still slept more than I did. Plus, you got 2 hours of sleep, so
I got
you have nothing. You have nothing to complain about. I got 3.5.
I'm going to give the audience my secret, which is get on the plane, do some work while you wait for dinner service. 2 glasses of red wine, then nod off for 1 hour. Once you get to your destination, you're going to be okay to stay awake until bedtime. That's what I did yesterday and just slayed it.
It's a clean conscience is what it is.
It really is.
That's all it is.
Yeah. No regrets. What do we got, Jaron?
There is...
Wait, who am I?
You're Jordan on a bus. That is how he sounds. That's so good. You've heard it enough times that I'm sure you know. It sounds like water boiling, just almost the boiling.
Look, dude, I would trade the ability to do that in a heartbeat. Anyways, I think we're getting off topic.
There is no topic because what have you been up to is redundant. Here we are.
We're in Japan.
Well, you'll see what we've been up to as far as what we're doing here in Japan.
I do love, one thing though about Tokyo and
He was so close to
I know. If you can't sleep, you wake up at 4 a.m, and that's actually wonderful. And this is a good travel tip for anybody, right? Okay. Regardless of whether you can sleep or not. I think it's really important when you do visit other places, get up at weird hours. Like, get up for the interesting light. Your family's going to want to go sightsee during the day and all that kind of stuff, right? So if you want time to shoot, get up at 4 or 5, do sunrise.
4:45. In the streets of Tokyo, and it was cool.
Yeah. We went to Sensoji Temple. Now, anybody who knows Sensoji Temple in Asakusa, it's probably the most popular Buddhist temple in Tokyo. It's nightmare, right? I mean, it's just full of people in yukata wanting to get their selfies taken, and it's brutal, and there's thousands of people. It was beautiful this morning.
Yeah, there were 1 or 2 people who were actually praying. Other than that, it was dead silent. Gorgeous.
Beautiful light.
Appreciate it.
It was so cool.
Really, really neat.
Yeah. Calm, peaceful. Exactly what a temple's supposed to be. So yeah, highly recommend it. And stay up at weird times of night. And, go out at night. Tokyo is a very cool metropolitan city because unlike New York, when it's nighttime, it's asleep. The city's peaceful and calm and quiet, and I love it for that. Anyways.
That was actually worth interrupting.
Oh, man. There you go.
So we're going to move on to never read the comments, which we're going to do before tech support.
What's going on?
And we don't do never read the comments every week because sometimes I don't have enough time to go through all the comments. But I did this week, and there are some comments that we should read that we should...
When we switch hemispheres, we switch the order that we do the back half of the show.
We always read the comments, but we don't always read the comments on the podcast.
On the podcast, that's correct.
Sometimes we never read the comments on the podcast.
One of these is an email I got, which could have been a comment, but I'm I'm going to read it here because it's related to last week's podcast. It's from MJS Cox. Just wanted to thank the three of you, plus Peter, for a fascinating look at the retail photographic business. As one who worked in a couple of camera stores in the late 1970s, Lens and Shutter,
classic,
and Kits cameras, I appreciate the challenges of maintaining stock and having demo models and selling, all while the margins for the eye-catching stuff
from Vancouver
are small, supplemented by the accessories with the higher margins. So yeah, you're welcome. It sounds like people really liked that interview, which I'm happy about.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Here's one from Angela Maloney.
Wow.
This is
good
the best comment I've ever read. So Angela,
we should do a chapter setting for this one specifically. For this one comment.
This is so good. Angela says, I was watching the podcast and fell asleep. I had a weird dream in which I started dating Jordan, and Jordan brought Chris and Jaron to my hotel room while I was traveling.
Angela,
doesn't sound like something I'd
you
do.
naughty minx.
The hotel room looked like something garish enough to come out of Trump Tower and had multiple rooms.
That is where I prefer to stay, is in garish
Jordan
hotel rooms.
only stays at Trump owned
Properties.
Facilities. Yes, it's a thing of his.
It came time for me to check out, but the three of them kept talking about various ways that the industry, especially Canon, had started treating camera stores worse and worse over the years. I think I know where she is in this whole conversation on the podcast. I couldn't get them to stop.
That's accurate.
That's a total cock block. I'm sorry. Talking about camera gear.
Finally,
you're just trying to go on a date with Jordan. It's terrible. Sorry.
Finally, I had to have security chase them out so I could vacate the room.
Not the first time.
But then they started talking about it over the phone, which were like phones from the 1930s that you'd seen in an old movie. It was really weird. That was fantastic.
No, that was really weird. But
if this becomes a recurring dream, that's what it's every week we'll just dip into like what is the latest dream drama that Angela's going through.
Angela, will you fall asleep to this week's podcast
and report back?
Yeah, I want to know what you dreamed this time.
You're our journalist in the field now.
Thank you for sharing that. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Jordan's wife is
Angela.
Furious? No,
she probably didn't.
I think she's going to find this hilarious. Like, they don't shut up. It's true.
Dylan Vassar said, regarding the Fujifilm shortage, I was in Japan in July. They had Fuji slide film at all of the major used camera shops. When going to the Fuji website for Velvia 100, there's a note stating that in 2021, the EPA had a ruling banning PIP, a chemical found in very trace amounts during development of Fuji slide film. The EPA effectively banned processing and distribution of Velvia, and in July 2021, Fuji pulled Velvia from the US market. I'm assuming they also pulled much of their other films as well, except for the Fuji 200 you find everywhere. The only way to get it now is to bring some back from Japan like I did.
Guess what Jaron's going to be
doing
that today.
Someone else commented it's in Europe as well. But yeah, I'm going to go buy film to this while we're here because I want to. He says Chris says I shouldn't want to shoot slide film.
You brought 21 rolls of analog film.
No, I didn't. I brought 11 and you brought me 4 more.
And you're going to buy 26 more rolls and take it back. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd shoot E6. Anyways.
It is a distinctive look. Like, it's hard to expose and stuff like that. But I feel like I have shot all of the major film types just to kind of have that experience in my back pocket. And I've seen beautiful photos on slide film. So I think it's worthwhile to do it once.
I mean, if you're going to digitize
and pay the horrific development costs you're about to incur. So enjoy that.
I don't even really look at the bill.
And your exposure has to be bang on too. But I mean, you're going to digitize it. So it's fine. Sure. Okay,
so that's
great.
What I'm going to do.
You're just going to pay more money for development.
And do the get a carousel. We'll have a family photo
do an actual
night.
slide projector? Yeah.
Oh, next time we're in Portland, we should, and I will project the Super 8 footage.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, no.
The last one here that we're going to talk about is from Happy, and this is a comment on PetaPixel. I would have loved to hear the conversation with Peter about how you two, Chris and Jordan, decided to make YouTube videos. They didn't need Peter for this. I'm going to have them answer that now.
We've mentioned this before on the show quite a few times. Go ahead, Chris. This is your turn to do it.
Well, I know, Jordan started working at the camera store. I'd been there for quite a few years, and he had the video background, and I had the teaching background, so we decided, hey, why don't we make videos to just advertise products and embed them. And I think we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, first, we did a store tour.
We did a store tour.
They were like, guys, we need a video store tour that we embed on our website so nobody watches it. And what immediately popped is I was like, blah, 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 and everybody else that we interviewed. And Chris was like, hey, and over here we have, blah, blah, blah. So we had you did like the film section, the point and shoots, the DS, like all of it. Basically.
I had no facial hair. I had long hair.
And he was just very comfortable on camera immediately, where everybody else looked looked visibly, like if you see me in that, it is.
Oh, and this is off topic, but then we did a revisited store tour and we did it in a oneer. That was sweet.
You can find that.
That took a lot of coordination, but that was
days
good.
to set that up.
That was a fun thing. But so basically we decided to do some reviews on products so that we could embed them on the website. We weren't going to put them on YouTube. We're just like,
did YouTube exist at the time?
Oh yeah, it did. But only like, DigiRev was going and that was about it, right? Like,
and I didn't even know about Digital Rev at the time.
And Gordon was really going.
Gordon was in like year 17. YouTube career.
And we're like, we're just doing that. And they're like, well, why don't we put these on YouTube?
So this is actually really interesting is fellow YouTuber and big deal Tyler Stallman was the one who came into the store and said like, why don't you just host these on YouTube? It doesn't cost you anything.
He wasn't in YouTube at the time. He was
wasn't.
Just like,
no, he was just like, this would be a better
cool.
place
You should
for
do
you.
it. Yeah. So we started doing that. And then we started going out on location and shooting stuff and it kind of just exploded from there. And, to Peter's credit, his contribution was basically to let us do what we wanted to do. He was like, okay, this is good branding for the store. Absolutely. You guys will have to do it on your own time. That wasn't so cool. Actually, that wasn't cool at all. But, he's like, yeah, we're not going to pay you any extra. Just you do it on your own time. If you want to do it, great. And it has to be named after the camera store. So that wasn't cool. So actually, it wasn't cool.
Do you remember the one thing he made us cut in the history of working at the camera store?
Oh, dude. No.
So we did a video where we went out to Banff for a workshop and they could only get one hotel room for us. So we just shot like a thing where we both walk to the same outside of the hotel room and look at our keys together and look at each other, and it hard cuts to the two of us in bed together. And then it cuts wide to the empty second bed in the hotel room. And Peter's like, I don't want you guys in the same shot spooning together. It's because I left the camera on it for like 6 seconds.
Yeah. So we negotiated that we simply shorten the amount of time.
We cut it down to like 2 seconds. That was our like meeting in the middle, our MPAA situation with Peter.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
That's right.
I remember that clip. I remember distinctly watching it and laughing. That's very good.
Good question.
Okay, that's it for Never Read the Comments. Let's move on to tech support. The first one is a speak pipe from Alex.
Hey guys, long-time listener, first-time speak piper. Here's my question. Given that there are differently sized lens mounts for the same size of sensor, some of which, like Sony E and Leica M, don't even seem to cover the entire surface of that sensor, would it be possible to use a lens mount intended for a smaller sensor on a camera with a bigger one? For example, could a relatively large full-frame mount like Nikon Z or Leica L be used on a small, medium format sensor? Or is this difference in size compensated for by flange distance or other technical factors? Thanks very much for the podcast. It's an absolute joy to listen to.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, there's a lot of debate about this, and Nikon made a big deal about how huge their lens mount is, and and Sony's always had a relatively small lens mount. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, no, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is the image circle that the light projects onto the sensor has to cover said sensor. So there isn't necessarily going to be a difference in that regard where like Nikon Z lenses happen to have a very large physical mount. That doesn't mean the lenses will optically project a larger image circle. And as far as image circles go, lenses are all over the place. Some lenses do actually almost cover medium format, or even can to some degree cover medium format with heavy vignetting. But again, they're intended for a certain size of sensor. As long as the light's unimpeded, the actual physical size of the lens mount really doesn't make that big a difference. And the only thing is, like, I guess you could say some cases, depending on the flange distance, larger lens mounts can then take adapters for smaller lenses. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is you can have a smaller lens mount if the flange back distance is quite a bit longer, or shorter, I mean.
Shorter.
If it's a long flange back, like a DSLR, you needed a physically bigger mount than like a Leica M or something like that, because the light would have to project, kind of meet in the middle, and get to the sensor plane.
Yeah.
So if you had a shorter flange back, you could do that. But yeah, absolutely, you could get like a medium format lens to project onto a Nikon Z mount with a bigger physical sensor behind it. It would just be a brand new optical formula on all the lenses to do that.
Yeah. But no, in the grand scheme of things, the actual size of the lens mount and the flange distance
I mean,
doesn't really impact what the engineers can do optically with the lenses to a huge degree. To some degree, yes, but not in a way that we've ever seen really appreciably makes a difference. I mean, again, everybody's given Sony such a hard time for their tiny little lens mount, and they make fantastic optics that a lot of people are jealous of. So it's not a deficiency. Yeah.
All right. Next one is another speak pipe from Brando.
Hey everyone, I have a question for you, but maybe mostly for Jordan. I was recently cross-shopping an FX30 and an S5 IIX, and because I am primarily shooting sport from a distance, I ended up deciding to get the FX30 instead. But when I was going over the S5 IIX features, it frankly sounds really good. I mean, it's supposed to have one of the best-in-class IBIS setups. It has the ability to let you record ProRes direct to an SSD with no attachments. I mean, other than the SSD itself. And it made me remember that when it came out, there was a lot of fanfare from reviewers, including Chris and Jordan. But since that time, I basically see nobody using it. It doesn't really have good adoption, and I don't really hear anything bad about it. So I was curious why that is. Does it just come down to the lens availability for L mount? I was curious if there's anything other than the lens selection. Thanks.
And yeah, I do think a huge part of it is the L mount hasn't had like one of those breakthrough cameras in that system yet. Something that makes it like a very widespread acceptance, like Sony had, for video with the A7S. The FX line would be kind of the follow up in that. Canon had a huge leg up because so many people were using their bodies for a while. Where the L mount, they jumped to a brand new sensor format with it. It's not like you could look at your legacy Micro Four Thirds lens, and I think they're having a bit of a tougher time building that out, despite the fact that S5 II, S5 IIX, I'd say are bang for the buck, probably the best hybrid cameras out there.
I think it's worth pointing out too, Jordan, is that you didn't stop using the S5 IIX because you didn't like it. You just have optics for Micro Four Thirds that you absolutely love, and as soon as Panasonic gave you a Micro Four Thirds option, you switched to that because you want to use this lens.
Well, that's actually kind of part of the problem, though. I think we should address that. Is like Panasonic makes too many good video cameras in that regard as well. I mean, they have the full frame S5 IIX and S5 II. They're great cameras, but they also have really good Micro Four Thirds choices.
I think and a lot of people are waiting because they have the S1H, which is capable, but it's very long in the tooth. And then you look at something like the GH7, and you're like, all that stuff, the 32-bit float recording, the higher frame rates, all of that stuff, the CF Express recording is all going to come eventually to L mount, and I think a lot of people are waiting for that. But if the S5 IIX ticks the boxes that you have right now, like it is a fantastic body. And you said I don't use it that much in the field, but it is, if you're watching an episode where I can feel my legs, it's generally being captured on an S5 IIX because it's a fantastic camera.
But it is still an interesting thing. Like, why didn't it get the traction? I mean, Panasonic to some degree, I think they shoot themselves in the foot because a lot of photographers aren't very serious about looking at them, and that's the camera's fault. They don't necessarily cater to photographers, so maybe like they should. And I think the other problem too is, but I'm still sorry. There's not a problem. I'm surprised that it hasn't gotten more traction because Panasonic really promoted the hell out of the S5 II system, and that got a lot of fanfare, like lots of social media attention for being their first phase hybrid detect autofocusing camera. And yeah, I mean, big events for it. Obviously, we got to be there and see the camera firsthand in Japan. So yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't really.
The IBIS is also excellent.
Excellent.
Like, if I'm going to pick a video camera, if I was making the decisions you were, I probably wouldn't have gone Sony. Especially like starting from scratch, lenses for neither of those systems, I still would go Panasonic because I prefer Panasonic's menu, the way that the video features that you can set up for it. I think it's just more approachable for specifically video use. But like as Chris was saying, I think the problem was that photographers were basically like, and didn't do anything with it.
So I'm going to throw one more theory out here, and this is something manufacturers have said for years, is we have to have that high-end flagship so people can aspire to that, and that's not something Panasonic has anymore.
Yeah.
What was the last one?
Well, it would be like an S1R for photography.
Oh, God, that was so long ago.
We talked about that. The S1R is ancient.
And the S1H for video is still technically like the flagship in that line, but it is very outdated feature-wise. They need to have, a high-end stacked sensor, hybrid camera, so people can say, this is what Panasonic is capable of. They're in for the long haul. And then I think that would actually really help the perception of their products a little further down the line instead of what they're doing now, which is updating just the mid-range and entry level, because that's where the sales are.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Very nice. All right, the next one is an email from the Cuz. As an OM1 Mark I user, and as OM System is a sponsor, not really related, but all right, do you think it's likely that OM System will release an updated pen camera? I get this question at least once a week.
Yep.
I think one of the weather sealing updated sensor and changed image stabilization with it would be great. They could call it a Pen IS. Genuine question except for the end. Love the show, guys. Thanks from Mark Thomas, South Wales, UK. Oh, so the cuz is Mark Thomas. Mark, we've told them over and over again. I've looked them into the windows of their soul and said, you will sell thousands and thousands of these if you just make
Everybody wants one. Yeah, it's surprising they haven't.
And they haven't done it. And I actually am wondering if it's because they still haven't produced something since becoming OM System.
I don't know. I hope. So my fear was when we started seeing the OM5 come out, right, which was basically an EM5 and that kind of thing, I was like, oh, I don't want to see them go down this trend of just re-releasing the old Olympus cameras with the new
Unless
name.
it's a Pen F.
Yeah, but even then,
But
I'm like,
we're asking for specific updates to it.
yeah, like
absolutely.
I think a new pen would be amazing, but I think it has to be a new camera.
Yeah.
So I hope OM System is just like putting the R&D into making a brand new,
if we're going to
exciting
see
pen.
something from OM System, a brand new product made by them since being spun off by Olympus, it must be next year.
Because otherwise they could have already very easily rebranded the old pen. So, and they haven't yet. So I don't know.
I mean, fingers crossed for next year. I don't think we'll get another flagship because the OM1 Mark II is so new and it's very good. They could go.
They need to make a new pen. It'd be great if they made a because it's not just them. Everybody's asking for anybody to make a compact, stylish little street camera. Micro Four Thirds lens mount, I think, makes a ton of sense for the small cameras because you get interchangeability, but in a very compact package. As opposed to having to have a fixed lens.
Well, and the thing we have to remember is the Pen F's autofocus was out of date at the time.
Yeah, it was
the
garbage,
EM5 too was a better autofocuser.
Just put that in there.
So just put the new autofocus algorithms, a modern sensor in it, and already you're like well on your way. You know what? Ideally, put a stacked chip in there. That would be really cool to have a compact steel.
OM's IBIS, sold.
Yeah. Everything that they have currently, put it into that body design. And you know what? Just screw the video features because
I don't want them. I don't care.
You know what? We're in Tokyo. We're going to go down there. We're going to yell at them in person.
I already
right
did
now,
that.
everybody pack your bag. Do we have to
already
finish?
did that?
I did that at CP Plus earlier this year. I almost held his hand and like begged him, please make this.
Like crushed his fingers. Like, you'll do this. Like, you're going to make that camera now?
You'll walk into like OM Square and they'll be like, oh God, no, it's him.
Please don't threaten us. All right, the next one is another speak pipe. This one is from Mitchell.
Hi guys, longtime listener, first time caller. My daughter's 3rd birthday is coming up, and since she's taken an interest in my camera, I'd planned to buy her one of those cheap kids cameras from Amazon. I'm rethinking that plan though, because I recently let her run around with my Olympus EM5 on burst mode and came away with some shots that were total keepers. I was surprised at how quickly she figured it out, and it was genuinely touching to see the world through her eyes. I'd hate for all of her future photos to look like they were taken on a potato. It's nice to have shareable images, but I also want something that's appropriate for a 3-year-old. Do you know of a kid-oriented camera that doesn't suck and isn't loaded up with games? Or should I look on eBay for an old, simple, like a ruggedized point and shoot, maybe a Lumix FT1 or a Fuji XP 7090? Would love your input. Thanks for the help.
It's nice to have something that's drop proof. That would be my only concern, at that age kind of thing.
So a TG?
Yeah. So Jordan and I think we both kind of did this with our kids where we kind of got them started on tough cameras or waterproof cameras. Yeah, the image quality is not great. That's the problem. But simple controls, they tend to be point and shoot, push buttons.
Rico have one of those recently?
They just brought out, updated the models on the WRs. And that's a great starting, like the age 3, that's absolutely
It's still pretty young.
Because my daughter is 4 and definitely enjoys using, like we have a Nikon W100 point and shoot camera. I did find my older son, Liam, graduated actually very quickly to playing with primes and was kind of like, we're going out, buddies. Like, do you want a zoom lens or a landscape lens? And he would just grab one and have fun with that. And that was great for him, just kind of learning about composition and kind of pre-planning. And not that I'm explaining these concepts to him. He's just like, oh, I've got my wide lens today. And we did that on just the EM5 II, which you could probably get now. I bet on KH for like a couple $100.
And Olympus cameras and OM system cameras are rugged. Again, zooms I'd be a little careful of with a 3-year-old, but certainly if they get older, yeah. I think if you can get your kid to really latch on to manual control and playing with different focal lengths soon, well, you'd run with it. Yeah, run with it. Yeah.
Hopefully we answered that question in time.
But a 3-year-old, I would give a tough camera personally.
A point and shoot, I think, is a good way to go.
I'm not sure when you sent that speak pipe in. I banked these weeks.
She's probably 12 now.
Yeah, so I apologize.
I recommend if you go on DP Review, you can find my son's long-term review of his Nikon W100, which you should really watch, where he discusses how he doesn't use waterproof but uses the rugged.
All right, this next one is a multi-phased question in an email from Mike. So we're going to go through these one by one. This is Mike from Austin, Texas. I love the podcast, particularly the news and tech support portions. Great, that's where we're at. Yep. I have 2 questions and a suggestion. First question is for Jaron. Jaron, what made you choose the Bessa for a rangefinder? You work closely with a Leica file. I believe he's talking about Chris. And a Leica M3, considered by some to be the best Leica ever built, is about the same price as a Bessa R2. Jesus. So I find it interesting that you chose the Bessa. Did Chris actually recommend a Bessa over a Leica, or are you defying him?
I did recommend the Bessa for Jaron. I think they're beautiful and very functional, and they sound great. And I'm not a Leica file, but we had
this conversation this morning around the temple at 5:30. Yeah. We were talking about this question.
No, I'm not a Leica file. Actually, I think I've said a few times, for the longest time, I didn't like Leicas. I didn't think that they were practical.
You disliked.
I disliked them. Oh, Jordan. But it's really the digital Leicas that I prefer. The latest one. And honestly, it took it to the M11 to actually make me fall in love with them. So yeah, I'm not a Leica file. So when it came to film cameras, I personally always had a real hard on for the Bessa. I think they're beautiful. I like the way they look, more like kind of utilitarian. They're like anime looking cameras, which is perfect for you. You know what I mean?
What are you trying to say?
That you like anime?
Yeah, you're right. I do.
And boy toys
for what it's worth, also, since having this camera, it has made me very, very happy.
Yes.
And also this morning, I asked Chris about it. He's like, he always coveted one. And then I realized he's living vicariously through me.
I do love the word covet.
It's a good word.
It's a great word.
But yeah, no.
Coveting your neighbor's wife? Awesome.
Giving him a look. I trust Chris on this sort of thing because he's been doing this so much longer than me, and he's actually had hands-on time with all of these cameras before.
And so far, I've been right.
So
I even helped him find the rewind button today.
Yeah, I had to actually take a film roll out of there for the first time I finished a roll, so he helped.
But
me
yes,
with that.
We're gonna get you the Bessa under camera.
I don't think I need that.
Winder.
I don't think I need it.
But they're so cool. You're just like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
It seems unnecessary.
Dude, it is so completely unnecessary.
We're going to find one in a store in Japan today.
You need to put one on.
All right, so we're going to move on to the second question from Mike. This one's for Chris. I'm about to be spending some time in a number of dark sky parks and want to attempt some night sky photography. I will be shooting film, so trial and error will be expensive and time-consuming process. That's film. I would prefer to avoid star trails, so I will be selecting a shutter speed accordingly. I found a recommendation for full-frame cameras use 500 divided by the focal length of the lens, and for APS-C cameras use 300 divided by the focal length of the lens. And that leads me to suspect that for medium format, I should use 800 divided by the focal length of the lens. But then I considered this for a bit and probably overthought the whole issue.
No.
Oh, okay. I believe that the size of an object, e.g. a star on the sensor or negative, depends on the focal length of the lens and not the size of the sensor or the negative. I concluded that the format didn't really matter, but rather how much you magnify the image for display is that will determine the correct minimum shutter speed. So given that I want to blow up a 6x6 negative to a 16x16 inch print, how much should I calculate the appropriate minimum shutter speed? Since this is 8 times magnification, should there be a dividing by 800 by 8 and then by focal length of the lens? This is a very complicated question.
I think Mike is trying to overcomplicate. I mean, first off, a 16 by 16 inch print isn't that big, especially for medium format. But the idea is this. So just to give context, when we talk about this rule of thumb of dividing a number like 500 by your focal length, it's really to make sure that your shutter speed doesn't go long enough that you get kidney-shaped star trails. And the more you magnify with the focal length, the more you're going to see this effect. So that's kind of why we have these different numbers for different sensor sizes, because it's really going down to the magnification of the lens. So there have been people who say, yeah, you could push a little bit further with medium format, go 800 divided by your focal length. That's the amount of maximum seconds of shutter speed. I still think 500 is a good rule of thumb across the cameras. And that being said, it really is going to depend just on how much you plan on enlarging and how big you want to go. I would still stick to around 500 or so, but you're not doing a big print. But you might want to later. I don't know.
Yeah, I know a lot of the dedicated photographers who do a ton of astro are like, that's kind of an outdated rule. Like they lean more on like 250 divided by focal length. Really, especially like you said, if you're going the whole negative, that's great if you want to crop into it or anything. But I do 250 by that now is kind of my rule of thumb. But it's also because we're like, when we're shooting astro, we're testing lenses, which is different from just trying to get something creatively.
Yeah, and also, like you do astrophotography on a 60 megapixel digital camera or 100 megapixel GFX, and then you're pixel peeping, and you're like, damn those little kidneys. Damn those kidneys. So then, you don't want to see that.
Slipped into Seinfeld again.
So the kidneys. So then you don't want to have that long shutter speed. You especially with ISO getting better too, then you start to just push your ISO higher, pull back your shutter speed a little bit quicker. So yeah, it depends. I would stake 500 for what you're doing is perfectly good rule of thumb for your medium format, especially because you're not printing very large.
All right, the last one is not a question, it's the suggestion. And it's
Jordan.
The suggestion is that Jordan needs to give up his hatred of Chris's obsession with fishing. I personally prefer the episodes when Chris is fishing because the scenery is far more beautiful than Calgary. On fishing episodes, we are treated to beautiful videos of rapids, trees, mountains, and birds, and fortunately, he rarely actually catches a fish.
Yeah, because I have somebody telling me we got to move location and finish this damn video.
Feel free to reduce or eliminate the amount of time focused on Chris actually fishing and simply focus on the spectacular scenery there.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Believe me, the videos of Chris fishing are better than the videos following him around photographing puddles on the streets of Calgary.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Jordan, are you going to give up your hatred of Chris's fishing?
So here's the thing. I love going to beautiful locations to shoot the episodes, but once we're there, I very quickly run out of creative options.
Whose fault is that?
What I can do while Chris is on the water. He can't present. He's not taking pictures, so I wind up getting like a landscape, a time lapse of the sky, some close-ups of some inches, some slow motion of a waterfall.
You can bring a book.
And I can do all that in 10 minutes. And then what am I doing? And I'm not just going to sit there and read. Like, I want to get this shoot done. I want lots of good sample images.
See what I have to work?
I want to get through the talking points. I don't want to sit and watch Chris fish.
So unfortunately, Mike, it does not sound like he's going to give up his hatred.
Exactly.
I love going to beautiful places. Here's the ideal, is we go to a beautiful place. You and I shoot talking points all day long. We go to bed at the beautiful place. Then you wake up like you did today at 4 o'clock in the morning. You go fish then while I sleep or edit. There, we've solved the problem. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's terrible. It's terrible. Jordan became a drummer so he could be that dude at the front of the ship, just dung, 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 dung. Get to work.
The last thing Mike said is, I want to thank Jaron for his remarks about his father and his photography and printing. It helped motivate me to get back into shooting film. You're welcome, or I'm sorry. Depends on how troubled you are by the cost.
Jaron's the only one who got off easy on that.
Did I get off easy? Because I'm still spending a lot of money.
He didn't criticize your puddles or tell you you're doing your job wrong.
Yeah, or tell me I don't catch fish ever, which is Jordan's fault because he's not giving me any time.
Oh, man. All right. The next one is an email from Matt Lafayette. I found great comfort in buying cameras and lens combinations advertised as weather sealed, water resistant, etc. I'm taking photos in an uncontrolled environments, on glaciers, climbing in mountains, skiing in the desert, and so on. For this reason, the Olympus, Fuji, and recently Nikon cameras have been appealing, especially Nikon, as that's where I started my journey decades ago in high school. And I've already amassed a collection of lenses over the years. I think
they have a museum too now.
They do. We're going to look at it.
We're going to go see it.
I see anecdotal evidence that Nikon and Canon are resilient. In your recent high-res body comparison, you even touted how rugged the Z8 body was. I also hear stories of Sony cameras failing at inopportune times. Well, it did fail when it went at the edge of space. It did do that. The LCD did, in fact, die. It did come back a few days later, though, which is the real weird part. So what's the state of the current market? Which cameras and lens systems can I trust in dirty, a little rainy, or snowy environments? When it comes to modernize my lens and camera system, should I stick with rugged Nikon, or are all systems, quote, good enough? Thanks. I'm a long time and avid reader and listener. Cheers, Matt
Lafayette. This is a tough question, Matt. Because it is all anecdotal, and
Just don't take your Sony into space and you should be okay.
Yeah, don't take your Sony into space. No, you know what? And camera manufacturers, they do, like, because there's no real way to test these in a way that anybody,
they just don't want to do
nobody
it.
wants to do it. Yeah, and nobody wants to buy cameras and then risk destroying them and stuff. And so and it changes from model to model to model. So Sony did have an issue where, like, their battery port on the bottom, if you put the camera into water, like the wet on the bottom, it could get in and cause problems. But otherwise, like, we have Sonys and stuff out in the rain all the time. They do just fine. Most cameras will handle some dust. They'll handle some rain from above without any problems. And you should never have a camera sitting in standing water. That's always a bad idea. And we've flooded Nikon flagship cameras.
From entry level all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, like OM and Olympus cameras have often been really rugged. Pentax have been really rugged. You know, they seem to have held themselves to a really high standard. But in the end, I would say if a lens is weather sealed, you never know by how much or to what degree unless they give you a rating on it. That's kind of the only way you can be sure that they actually did the whole test the camera in a box with jets of water spraying.
Only a few companies.
The OM and
Yeah.
Leica does something similar.
Yeah, Leica does something similar. You know, but for the most part, if it says it's weather sealed, in my opinion, it can usually handle some inclement weather, no problems. If you want the extreme, then you want to get something that actually has a rating.
It's when water and snow starts collecting, that's when you'll run into real issues. But yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of a matter of wait for it to be out on the market for a couple of years and you'll start hearing from photographers. But it's not something as a reviewer. It's really possible.
And again, you can have all sorts of problems with a camera that should have survived but didn't, you know, like...
Have the camera manufacturers ever been really grateful when we ship it back and they're just like, hey guys, thank you for really testing the weather sealing of this? No, they complain about it years afterwards.
When we flooded, was that D3 that we flooded?
4S.
D4S? Oh, they were mad.
I'm not shocked that Jordan knows the exact model.
They were mad. I just remember the trauma. Jordan remembers the model. Yeah. They were mad, you know, and there's always stories of like, oh, this guy's Nikon SLR stopped a bullet, this Leica M camera stopped a bullet kind of stuff, you know, in a war zone. Sure. I mean, it's, I don't think
he's asking for that.
No, I know. Well, you don't know. You don't know what Matt's up to. Matt might be in some hardcore stuff, man.
I'm sorry.
Come on. Don't say
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he's a
All
bullet
right, next
dodger.
one is an email from Ryan. I shoot mainly motor sports with both a Nikon Z8 and an Olympus EM1X.
Old school.
There are certain events where there is a limit on the physical length of the lens I can bring with me, which means taking my EM1X and the 50 to 150 or 100 to 400 lens over my Z8 and 150 to 600. I love both kits, but the AF hit rate on my EM1X is worse than I would get on my Z8, as expected. My question is there significant improvement in AF on, say, the new Lumix G9 II or OM1 Mark II over that EM1X, or should I stick with my current kit and look at a more compact Z-series telephoto like the 100 to 500 from Tamron? Love the show and all the work you do. Thanks a bunch, Ryan. Yeah, your hit rate's going to be much better on the newer camera.
Yeah, the newer cameras do a better job, for sure.
They have, the EM1X introduced their, AI-based subject tracking, but it was still pretty rudimentary at that point. I can say, the G9 II's recent update specifically for vehicle autofocus is actually pretty banging. As soon as a car was rolling through my frame, it just immediately snapped to it. I haven't shot motorsports or anything with it, but it does seem to be much improved. And you found the subject tracking on the EM1 Mark II quite...
The OM1 Mark II.
OM1
yes,
Mark II,
the OM1 Mark II. I mean, it's similar to the OM1, but a little bit more accurate for subject tracking. So yes, I think you'd find a higher hit rate. There's plenty of photographers using G9 IIs and OM1 Mark IIs for wildlife and sports and having a great old time. So yeah, I would say you'd find that to be just fine.
Yeah, because you've already invested in an absolutely banging lens.
And they're saying, and they're limiting your telephoto range. So yeah.
Then nothing would really change. So you just get better.
But the Z8's great autofocusing camera, no doubt.
Ow. Yeah. All of our legs are starting to freak out. We're almost to the end here. You look like you're bending steel beams.
I'm okay.
Next one is an email from Tim Arthur. Hi, Chris, Jordan, and Jaron. I recently acquired a Leica Q2 monochrome, and I am absolutely astounded by its image quality and
Hell
low light
yeah,
capabilities.
you are.
I doubt I'll ever shoot color again.
No, you never need to ever again.
You and Chris should just go
Color's
drink beer together.
stupid.
He
Color's
loves black and white.
stupid.
Except for family photos and documents. Nope, not even those. Black and
No.
white. Meanwhile, I have an OM System EM10 with an array of lenses. Every day I pray to the photo gods that OM System or Panasonic will produce a Micro Four Thirds monochrome camera just like the Q2 except with a smaller sensor. Is there any chance that this might happen?
No.
It would make so much sense.
Yeah.
That's why it won't happen.
Yeah.
OM System should make a pen, and they should make a black and white.
Black and
only.
white
M.
A black and white pen variant would be huge.
Yeah, right now. And you know, all joking aside, I know you want to finish it.
No, I don't know if you need more in there.
Should I sell my own gear and buy the Pentax monochrome, or I've also you can have the color layer stripped off a sensor? Ooh, I wouldn't do that.
It's really expensive. Kalari probably does it.
Yeah.
Kalari Vision. They do a good job, but it is expensive.
But Tim Arthur, we appreciate your love of our podcast.
And could Pentax develop a converter from Micro Four Thirds to APS-C? No.
Yeah, but you know, in all seriousness, Micro Four Thirds. Obviously, the downside that a lot of people complain about is smaller sensor, maybe not as much dynamic range, whatever. And so there is legitimate benefit going to a monochromatic sensor. You do basically essentially get to move up a sensor size. So Micro Four Thirds monochrome would be equivalent to APS-C color, and APS-C monochrome would be equivalent to full frame color, and so on and so forth. And we saw this with the Pentax monochrome, the 3.3 mono. You know, and of course, we also saw it with the Leicas, where you do get
You're
an
getting
appreciable
medium format.
Yeah, almost.
Detail, yeah.
It's beautiful. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. We should have more black and white cameras. They're not silly. There is an actual scientific, technical benefit. And, yeah, you should just shoot everything black and white now, including your family photos and documents.
Yeah, you definitely went to the right person to talk about wanting to only shoot black and white because Chris is very strongly in that camp. A lot of his work comes out black.
If we could shoot the show black and white for the rest of our lives,
If you could
I'd
shoot our
happily
show
do it.
black and white and in portrait orientation exclusively, to my chagrin, you would absolutely do it.
That's all. I just want vertical black and white images all day long. All my favorite images are vertical. Anyways.
It drives me crazy.
So we're going to end it there, but we're going to go finally to the feel-good story of the week, where Jordan does Japan his own way.
Yeah, so to give context,
Is this the hotel thing? Because I think this is important.
Yeah, this is we're staying in an Airbnb right now. A lovely little villa.
It's been great.
We're in the tatami room. It's great.
Is it a villa? If it's
They call it the Asakusa Villa. Yeah,
Okay.
and so really nice place to stay if you're in Tokyo. But you know, for the events we normally go to, they put us in hotels, and so Jordan has exclusively had Japanese breakfast at hotel buffets, like exclusively.
There's always a Western buffet and a Japanese side, and I could always get breakfast curry, and it's given me the courage to get through a shooting day with a very tired, jet-lagged Chris Niccolls every time I've been to Japan.
People who may not know this, kare is not a breakfast food in Japan.
Okay, so this is news to me.
It's like Kraft mac and cheese.
They're available at every one of these hotels, and whenever I go on a press trip, I just go from person to person saying, like, are you eating curry for breakfast yet? Get on the curry train.
Yeah, breakfast curry.
And without fail, once people get on the curry train, like...
I love breakfast curry. When we're at the hotels, I eat the curry right beside you.
But
you know?
it is not a breakfast
No,
item.
it's like Kraft
Like,
dinner.
I know I converted Ted Forbes, I converted Farouk Ifondo, came up to me and he was like, you know what? You were right. Breakfast curry is where
It
it's
is very
at.
heartwarming, but so anyway.
We're in an Airbnb. Where's the curry?
There's
What
no
am I going to
curry.
do, guys?
So... What'd you do, Jordan?
Well, this is why it's the feel-good story, is we went down to...
Family Mart. We went to a local Family Mart.
So same idea as like the 7-Eleven.
Or Lawson.
Yeah, Lawson here. It's a convenience store, and they had
Konbini.
some katsu curry sitting there, just ready for me to heat it. The gentleman working there, who has clearly been working in this convenience store for, what would you say, Chris? Like 104
That Oji-san,
years?
he was terrified that you purchased katsu curry for breakfast.
But he offered to like warm it up right in the restaurant for me. I brought it back here, and I won. I won at breakfast.
I think you did. But you know what, though? So Jaron and I were going for the classic sandwiches. If you haven't had a Japanese convenience store sandwich,
They're great.
yeah, they're like...
Any of them.
They're like, whole wheat bread is for losers. Crusts are for, stodgy adults. Nobody wants crusts,
wants crust?
And so they're like, adults keep it on because they're embarrassed to cut them off because it's so childlike, but we all want the crust cut off. They take the crust off. white bread, crusts off, egg salad. Japanese egg salad is amazing. The ham cheddar.
I don't like egg salad anywhere else, really.
Oh, dude.
I feel like we're really deviating from the feel-good story, which is Jordan ate curry at this point.
We watched, so we're eating our egg salad sandwiches. We're watching you eat your katsukuri for breakfast, and you were so happy. So I'm glad that you got to. But this also means that Jordan has never in his entire life in Japan eaten anything
I've never had an actual
than curry for
authentic
breakfast
Japanese
before
breakfast.
noon.
So I'm asking, like, what is a real? Because Jaron's saying, like, that's not Japanese breakfast.
not.
What is Japanese
Rice,
breakfast?
eggs,
I don't know. So should I
vegetables.
actually do a Japanese breakfast once this trip? Because I might spiral. My body is when I'm
You
here.
get
it's like, you gotta have
natto,
the
you
curry
get
for
like
breakfast.
raw egg on rice, maybe some pickled vegetables.
Some small fish, like some bits of small fish.
Or have onigiri. Well, it's more of a lunch thing, but Japanese breakfast is Spartan, rice, egg.
Well, by the time this airs, we will be back home. But in the comments, tell me what I should have had for Japanese breakfast while I'm here. I think that'd be very valuable.
The reason it feels good is because his belly feels good.
It's
Full of
true.
curry.
But I want curry now for lunch, so you're gonna have to eat curry twice.
I'll deal.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully that you enjoyed watching us be in physical pain. Please don't damage anything.
You're good.
Oh my God, I'm so worried. Go the other way. You're too close to the window.
Yeah, we don't like you
That's made of
around
paper. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Jordan.